Today is about professional teleselling. It's really about some core competencies and skills around being more effective on the phone. We're going to follow that up by applying those skills and competencies in week 1 through a coaching program in small groups with a manager and a handful of sales professionals, 6 to 8 people. The purpose of the coaching is to implement and reinforce and refine the best practices and skills in a real-world environment. We're going to continue that process from week to week, and each week it's going to get more fine-tuned, more refined, more applied, and the skill set is going to keep improving. And we're going to continue that process from week 1 to week 2 to week 3 to week 4, all the way through until the foundation is solid and everyone's contributed and people feel comfortable with the process and have built the foundation they can continue to add new skills on. And then immediately after that, there'll be a follow-on program around negotiations. And that will now begin the process all over again, which is to say, okay, now how do we take all the skills of preparing, probing, proposing, how do we take those skills now, raise them to another level, and now interject negotiations and take it one level higher and say, how do we position ourselves better? How do we position ourselves for higher margins? How do we learn to negotiate effectively in a way that we're more confident? And based on the information we've gathered through the telesales program, we now are armed with the kind of information we need to better negotiate, to better position ourselves, to continue to increase the value of our company through better close rates, better margins, and just a more effective way of developing win-win relationships with our clients. This is a system, it's a process that's going to start next week, and it's going to continue on for 8, 10, 12 weeks after that. Each week building on the previous week. So based on that, let's begin with the first day program, kind of what we're here for today, which is this professional teleselling program. From a tech data perspective, there's some specific goals and objectives that drove this initiative. From the management and executive perspective, they all sat down, we talked about it, and they came up with, here's why we're doing this. So let's go to the next level. So they say, in order to support that goal, there's 3 primary objectives. One is employee development. Tech data cares about employee development as part of their overall strategy and goal to achieve what they want to achieve in the marketplace. To make those improvements is let's learn the best practices from the ones who have figured things out along the way and maybe have been here longer and have picked some things up. So let's create a culture where we're developing employees through what already works within our own culture. Right? So that's an approach that you guys like to take. And that's a way to recognize that you value your own culture and your own employees and the success that they bring. And so, Jeff, if you're one of the top 20% and you reject what we're doing here, and yet the first objective built on this whole premise is that you are an extremely valuable component of the success of this initiative, what kind of impact do you think that would have on the overall initiative? Pretty devastating, right? And that's kind of how the top 20% in the room have to recognize, if they say, well, I've already got it, I don't need, they got to recognize that they are a key component of the success of this initiative, because part of what we're going to be doing is creating an environment where we pull out their best practices, and now they become someone who mentors other people. And so that's kind of the essence of what I get out of that first initiative is it's an employee development culture that's built from inside out. So it creates that environment where things happen that are in different components of different people's minds, and when it comes together and you create that peer-to-peer and peer-to-manager environment, stuff happens that you can't predict. Improvements happen at a much more rapid rate than any other way. So creating this culture creates an environment where all that emerges at a much more rapid rate. So going back to the first culture, which says, currently we've built a successful company and organization with a responsive, reactive culture because we have been so good and so successful over the years that we've created something that is very much inbound. And so we became really good at handling that and becoming a successful company. As times change and as you grow and continue to take more and more market share around the world, it's created an environment where that culture, instead of being just great at managing what's coming in, needs to transform slightly, and not completely, but kind of a combination. Keep doing what we're doing well, but add another element to it, just maybe another 5%, another 10%. and improve the combination of those two cultures to a point where you get to a more dynamic culture where it's inbound and outbound, and puts you in a position where you can continue to grab market share at a faster and faster rate than the market is growing, which helps you become a more dominant player, which helps you increase your margins, which helps you in a competitive situation, and it supports the overall goal of continuous improvement across the entire organization. So those are the goals and objectives as developed and as set by your management and executive team. We're just here to support that. And so for this program today, and there'll be other program objectives as we go forward with other programs, but for today, it's really about helping Tech Data with a set of coaching and telesales competencies that enable the creation of higher demand, margins, loyalty, penetration per customer through a process of building trust and credibility, and each of you as an individual building a trusted advisor relationship with your customers. That's kind of the intent and the focus for today. The specific objectives for a program are to introduce a common telesales process, a common language, and a common culture. Back in support of the objectives, create this common communication and system and process where all these best practices can emerge, wherein we create a continuous improvement system so you all can keep improving through your own contribution to this process and sharing best practices, and specifically to you individually, develop the individual outbound telesales competencies both for planning, how do you prepare for an outbound call, how do you ask questions that give you more insight and more understanding to better position you, how you listen more effectively so you get the nuances and the things that can give you more of a competitive advantage, and then how do you propose and close in a way that increases your success rate individually so you can be more effective in the same or less time.